Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar. My name is Sage, and I'm the middle sibling.
I'm Storm, the youngest sibling.
And I'm Deshay, the oldest sibling.
She's so
Hi,
old.
sisters.
Very old.
What's up, brother? Or what were we
What's up, brother? Okay, so I brought that into the shop because I saw it on TikTok and I couldn't stop saying it because I thought it was so funny. And then I realized who else was like into it and saying it, and I was like, I have to stop. And now I can't stop. So it's a problem.
What's up, brother?
Yes. Have you seen
Or
like
the
where that
sisters?
came from? Both of them. The sister
Yeah.
one, the sister one recently because he's been popping up more because of Coachella. I guess he's like, this is when he gets his money or something. But
crazy. He keeps popping up on my TikTok, and I'm like, ugh, swipe.
Yeah, I
Swipe
was
left,
one of
right? I don't know.
the swipe up.
Swipe up.
Yeah. I was one of the makeup girlies back then, like when he was really big, and I can't stand him. I can't.
There's just something
Anything
about him.
Well,
He just seems
there's
really
a lot
fake.
of things about him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
There is,
but
yeah.
like his personality, it just seems very fake. Like he's putting on a show, and it annoys me. That's why I can't watch Jeffree Star either. He just seems so like every time he's like putting on a show, and I'm like, just talk.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's so wild now.
No.
The internet's ridiculous, and I hate it, but I can't stay away from it.
I'm
But
on
please watch us
full-blown
on the internet.
Plant parent.
Exactly.
Yeah, watch us. Yes. I'm on full-blown plant parent TikTok and Instagram, so I'm learning all about the plants. And I told Richard that I'm going to be one of those people that you walk into their house and you have to like have a machete and like to get through the plants.
Yeah.
It's like Jumanji.
Yeah.
There's a tattoo shop. I think it's in like Portland or something. But it's a plant shop as well as a tattoo shop. And so like when you walk in, it's like a arboretum, and it's like this beautiful, it's just green. And then like you walk back and then there's tables and stuff. It was so cool. It was so cool.
So thinking hygienically, would you want to pick out a plant before or after?
Exactly.
Because I feel like
I don't know. I feel like you would. I don't know.
I mean, plants aren't
That's a good
dirty.
question.
I mean, but like if you were to drop like holding it and spilled some dirt or something, like I don't know, just
make sure it's in your car before you get the tattoo. That way you don't have to worry.
There you go.
Yeah.
Depends on where you get the tattoo, but yeah.
Yeah.
This is a pretty cool shop.
Oh, how's everyone's week been?
It's been long.
And it's only Monday.
Exactly. Yeah.
Today was one of those days where it was like I looked at the clock and it was 2:00 and I'm like, oh, it's only 2. And then like 4 hours later I looked at the clock and I was like, oh, it's 1:00. Like what happened? Yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I was procrastination city all year today. Wow. None of that came out right.
But honestly, it makes sense.
Oh my god!
Considering what you did, it makes sense.
You get it? Yeah.
It still makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going with it.
That's what's procrastination city all year today. I forgot what I was. Oh yeah,
It was on purpose. Did I realize you didn't say it?
I think I might have just had a stroke a little bit. I'm like.
I thought you were just like saying it like today was a year.
I had procrastinated so much and I finished my taxes today, but something was wrong. And so I had to like spend more than an hour on it, and it was bad. I hated it. So it's been a long week already.
It was so weird because we were talking about taxes at lunch today and like how like billionaires and stuff, how much they usually end up paying in taxes and stuff. And then I was like, wait, isn't today tax day? Did we just like subconsciously know when we were like, let's talk about taxes? Fun, riveting conversation at lunch. You know what I mean?
Yesterday, everybody that came in, they were like, what day is today? I was like, it's the 14th because my taxes are due tomorrow. And they're all like, shit. I'm like, Okay, I'm not the only one that does them on the day that they're due. Okay, we're good.
Well, ours are so easy that we literally just do them right away. So I told Richard, I think it was yesterday, I was like, dang it, we got to make sure to do our taxes because tomorrow's tax day. And Richard was like, oh no, we better hurry up.
I like how y'all can joke about that, but it was literally giving me an existential crisis. I hate
W-2, let me tell you.
Yeah. 1099 is not fun.
Mm-mm.
All right. Nope. So I have a little bit of a shorter story. I was telling you guys earlier, it doesn't really go into like the details of like the murders and everything. It's more about how the case was handled and how everything kind of goes together. Cool. This is a very well-known story. A lot of people know about this one. Have you guys ever heard of Lonnie David Franklin Jr.? It's a big name.
No, but I love the name.
Yeah. So, so Lonnie was born on August 30th of 1952, and he grew up in South Central Los Angeles. He had a pretty normal upbringing. He got married in his 20s-ish, and he had 2 children. He was in the United States Army. He was given a dishonorable discharge from the United States Army in July of 1975 after being released from prison for a conviction of sexually assaulting a 17-year-old girl in West Germany in 1974. So, sorry. Franklin and 2 other servicemen stationed in Germany stopped to ask for directions from a teen girl who was walking down the road on her way home. She was like, yeah, I can show you guys where it is. So she gets into the car and they pull out a knife and they take her somewhere where it's secluded, basically, and they all sexually assault her.
Oh my God.
So this was very interesting to me. She was able to basically like seduce Franklin, and she was like acting like she was interested in him. And she asked for his phone number and he gave it to her. Wow. So that's how the police identified him, was because of his phone number that he gave to the rape victim.
Wow.
Yeah. So during the assault, there was one of the guys that was taking photographs of the assault and of the person who was being assaulted. While that was happening, Franklin was like, I get this. Like, I kind of like this. I'm into this. So that really stuck with him. The photographs really stuck with him for some reason. Kind of keeping that memorabilia, I guess, which is a really fucked up way to say it. So in 1989, Franklin was convicted of two charges of theft, 1 charge of misdemeanor assault, and 1 charge of battery. And he only served time for 1 of the theft charges. I couldn't really find much more information about those, so they didn't really mean much. But he's in and out of the system, kind of. So like he's got that kind of lifestyle going at the moment.
Right.
So in the mid-'80s, the LAPD became aware of an apparent serial killer targeting Black women who were chronic drug users and street sex workers. So during the 80s, LA, South Central, like that whole area, there were a lot of serial killers. There was at least like 4 or 5 of them at that same time. So the killer was dubbed the Southside Slayer, and was believed to be responsible for stabbing and strangling at least 13 sex workers between 1983 and late 1985. At one point, the murders were known. It's a lot. So at one point, then the murders were known as the Strawberry Murders. So apparently, strawberry was like a slang word for sex workers that use drugs. So they were called the Strawberry Murders. In September of 1985, the LAPD exactly, yeah. You'll find out that LAPD was not super awesome. So in that's the nice way to put that. In September of 1985, the LAPD described the case at a press conference and asked for tips from the public. So following the press conference, the LAPD was heavily criticized for their failure to alert the South Central community of possibly having a serial killer earlier. So this is the first this entire community is hearing about this. They see it on the news, and it's been happening for a while now. And this is the first they're hearing of it.
Cool.
So there is an activist around this time. Her name is Margaret Prescott. And her and a few other of the community activists held weekly protests outside of the LAPD headquarters in an effort to pressure the department to get a task force going to investigate these murders. Because right now, it's just like an open case. There's not like a full task force or anything, and it's just like when they can kind of thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay.
Exactly. So Prescott would argue that the apparent lack of police interest in South Central murders were due to the significant attention given to the investigation of Richard Ramirez, who we all know is the Night Stalker. So, like I said, there's a lot of serial killers going on at this time. So she's like, I understand, like, I get you guys have other serial killers, but at the same time, this is still fucking happening, and it, like, we need to do something.
Yeah.
Like, I just, you would think that's pretty well known. I mean,
one's not worse than the other. Like, they're both equally horrific. Like,
yeah, exactly. So, Prescott went on to accuse the LAPD of indifference of the deaths of women who were poor Black drug users and sex workers, and the LAPD denied. So Richard Ramirez was,
of course they did.
Yeah, Richard Ramirez didn't have any. As far as I remember, there weren't many like sex workers. He was going after like homes and like stuff like that.
Going into people's houses, yeah.
Right. So I think it's understandable what they're saying. Like it's because these women are drug users, they're Black, they're homeless, they're sex workers. Like they just don't care. And this is the 80s.
They don't have people that are going to come in here and bug the shit out of me to fix it when all these other families will.
Exactly. Yeah. So by January of 1986, 15 murders had been linked to this case. 15 of them.
Oh my God.
And there was still no task force. So
are you serious?
After the 15th murder, they're like, okay, I guess we should do something.
They've met
That's
our
just
quota.
One too many.
Yeah.
One too many.
Yeah. So they got a group together, LAPD and LASD investigation started. And they were known as the Southside Slayer Task Force. But by 1986, the case was still under investigation. So there's 15 murders going on. There's a small task force going on, and they still haven't told the public that there's a task force. So,
what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So, Prescott was like, okay, I'm not getting much just being like an activist. So she formalized the group of activists. And they created a community group, and they called it the Black Coalition Fighting Back Serial Murders. And they created that in March of 1986. So she's like, maybe now that we have a name, like we can actually start doing something and actually making an effort.
Yeah.
Or making progress, not an effort. They pursued the Los Angeles City Council to increase the reward money for offering any information of the killings from $10,000 to $25,000. By late 1986, conflicting MOs and suspect descriptions caused the investigators to doubt the original theory of there being a single serial killer responsible for these murders. So they're getting so much information from the people that they don't know what to actually go off of. So they're like, this can't just be one person. It has to be a bunch of different people.
Right.
But if we know anything about LA in the 80s, there were more than one serial killer going around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they're probably like, we have 7 serial killers right now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Evidence suggested that several serial killers, several serial killers, possibly 4 or more, were murdering women in South Central at the time. So there was around 4 going on at any time.
That's
the South Side,
crazy.
It's wild.
Move.
So South Central, I saw a documentary, and that was where like South Central was like, it was like the poor side of LA, and it was where anybody that didn't have like LA money, that's where they lived, and the cops didn't care. That it was just kind of like the Wild West up there, like anything could go on. The Southside Slayer Task Force began downsizing in 1987 due to a lack of results relative to the expense of the manpower that was being used. Task Force Commander Lieutenant John Zorn told the LA Times in December of 1987 that the flow of clues is almost non-existent at this point.
Because you're not looking.
No, and you have all this info, like do something.
Yes. They're all strangled. Yeah. They're all black. They're all drug users.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're all in a certain area, like you said.
Right.
What more do you need?
Yeah.
I mean, I get you need more than that, but I'm like, look at the area.
Yeah. I mean, they were all strangled. There was a bunch of different ways that they were murdered, which, I mean, like he said, there was 4 different serial killers going on at the time. Like, I get it. But at the same time, you should be able to differentiate, like, MOs and stuff like that. Because not all of them were the same race. Not all of them were doing the same thing and stuff like that. So it's just like, I don't know. I wasn't around back then, so I don't really know. But it's really...
What do you mean?
Off to
Why
me.
Not?
What do you mean?
Yeah, I was.
I know.
I was not.
What do you mean?
Exactly.
I was only like a year old, but I was there.
Yeah. I was
there. You were in LA?
Right. No. Yeah. Jeez. All right. So over the following years, it was found that serial killer Louis Crane committed at least 2 of the so-called Southside Slayer murders. The serial killers Michael Hughes, Daniel Lee Seibert, Chester Turner, and Ivan Hill were committed for at least 1 of each. In addition, some of the murders have been committed individually. So it wasn't a serial killer at all. It could have been the woman's pimp or one of her clients or like anything really. It wasn't a serial killer basically.
Yeah.
The murders of Judith Simpson, Cynthia Walker, and LaTanya Johnson, all committed with a 9mm pistol in late 1988, were all investigated by the Southside Slayer Task Force. Sheriff Detective Ricky Ross was arrested for the murders, and because when he was arrested, he was found with drugs in his car. A detective, yeah. So he was found with drugs in his car. There was a sex worker in his car, and he had a rusted 9mm in his trunk. So they arrested him,
God.
and they're like, "This is him. We got it. This is it. This is him." So Ross was charged with the murders after his gun was forensically linked by the LAPD from the bullets to the murder. So someone in the LAPD, or the LAPD, as they decided, this is the gun. Someone else decided to test the gun as well. So it was an independent forensic analysis, and they found that it was unlikely that Ross's gun was the murder weapon. So they don't know. All three of those murders, they had to let him go because there was, like, it could have not been
no evidence,
basically.
Yeah.
So all three of those murders were still unsolved. One particular group of killings, which were linked by common elements, including the use of a .25 caliber firearm, remained unsolved and unaccounted for by any other serial killers. So they were asking serial killers. They were like, "Do you know this woman? Did you kill this woman?" And they're like, "No." So they're doing everything they can as far as it seems. So the first known murder in the series was the murder of Deborah Jackson in August of 1985, which was linked to the August 1986 murder of Henrietta Wright by forensic firearm investigation. Y'all. Okay. I'll get it together.
Forearm investigation.
Forearm investigation.
These two were murdered by the same forearm.
Exactly. Oh, God. All right. So by 1987, there were 7 victims linked to the same gun, and they had all been shot at close range in the chest. So there's an MO. There's 7 of them. They were all shot the same way. 2 decades later, the perpetrator of these crimes was dubbed the Grim Sleeper due to the long period of inactivity between his murders. So that was 1987. That was the last we really kind of heard of him. So we're fast forwarding to 2007.
What?
Okay.
So in May of 2007, the killing of Janicia Peters, age 25, was linked through DNA analysis to at least 11 unsolved murders in LA that occurred in 1985.
Wow.
So it started again in 2007.
Yeah.
And 11 of them. So they're like, shit. So that same year, in secrecy, not telling anybody, the LAPD formed the 800 Task Force, composed of 6 detectives and overseen by the Robbery and Homicide Unit. So they're not letting anybody know that this is possibly the same serial killer.
Okay.
I mean, that one I kind of get, because I'm like, it was one murder, and like, what if it wasn't him?
Right. Yeah.
And then you get everyone freaked out.
It could be anything at that point.
That's a slippery slope on that one, but
yeah.
So, well, speaking of that, after 4 months, the LA Weekly investigative reporter named Christine Polinsky was like, "Nah, dude, people need to know about this." So she broke the news. She told everybody that there was a task force.
Oh, God.
And
everybody's like, "You freaking fricks." Yeah.
So she told them about the task force. She told them that it was linked to murders from the 80s. She also told them that the mayor and police chief are both silent, and they're not saying anything. They're not telling people that there's a possible serial killer on the loose.
Yeah.
So the mayor and the police chief, neither issued press releases or warned the community. So they haven't said anything. In some cases, LA Weekly was the first to inform families that their daughters had been victims of serial killers. So a lot of these, the people from the 80s and stuff, they didn't know what happened to their family. They didn't know that it was a serial killer. So they're finding out from this, some of them, which is insanely sad, and it's really hard. Yeah. In early September of 2008, LA officials announced that they were offering a $500,000 reward to help catch this killer. So they're like, all right, everybody knows, so we're going to have to get out like a lot of money to be able to do anything with this.
Yeah.
On November 1st, the case was featured on America's Most Wanted. On February 25th of 2009, the police chief addressed the press for the first time in the case. And he gave the name the Grim Sleeper from LA Weekly. So let's see. 2 years later, after the first murder, that's when he's the first time that he goes on the news and says anything. So in this press release, he released a 911 call from the 1980s in which a man reported seeing a body being dumped by Franklin, giving a detailed description of the license plate number and the van, which was connected to a now closed church from the area.
Wait, what? From the 80s?
Yes.
It's 2009. You didn't investigate that then?
I mean, I'm sure that they did, but like, how did that not?
Yeah, what'd you do?
Anything? Right. So in March of 2009, they conducted an extensive interview with Anitra Washington, who was the sole survivor of Franklin's attacks. So there was one woman that got away from him. And so she described him as he was a black man in his early 30s. He looked very neat and tidy. He was kind of geeky. And he wore a black polo shirt tucked into his khaki trousers. So just a normal looking dude, I guess.
Normal looking dude, yeah.
She was also able to describe the interior and exterior of his vehicle. So, again, there it is. Part of it.
Yeah.
All right. So, law enforcement missed the opportunity to catch Franklin because his DNA was not previously collected. Okay. I'm just going to do it. This is going to make us mad, just so you're aware. In 2003, Franklin was convicted of a felony and was serving 3 years of supervised probation. In 2004, voters passed Proposition 69, which required that DNA must be collected from felons when they're arrested. So it's just 2004 whenever this happens. And it required an expansion of the DNA database. So it's not just like individuals' DNA, it's like everybody that can be connected, basically. Authorities collected and sorted through thousands of DNA samples. While he was on probation, Franklin's DNA was supposed to be entered into the database. It was not entered into the database. The reason it was not entered into the database was because between November 2004 and August 2005, probation officers did not collect samples from people who were on unsupervised probation. The probation department did not have the resources to collect samples until August of 2005. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So it was literally a fluke that they don't have his DNA right now.
Yeah.
So police, they couldn't find an exact match for his DNA, but DNA was found at all of the crime scenes of all of the shootings. So they searched all of the databases and the stored profiles, and they were looking for demonstrated sufficient similarity to allow the police to infer a familial relationship. So they're trying to find if he has family members in there or something, because it's in there. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So they found similar DNA belonging to Franklin's son, Christopher, who had been convicted of a felony weapons charge in 2008. Now, Christopher was too young to have committed the murders in the 80s. But the familial DNA match led the investigators to his father, Lonnie. So they're like, all right, so now we have to get this guy's DNA. And he's a free man. He's not on probation anymore. They can't just ask him for it. So one undercover police officer pretended to be a waiter at a restaurant where Franklin ate regularly. He collected his dishes, his silverware, his glasses, and pizza crusts, which obtained his DNA. According to Cooley, detectives then used the discarded pizza along with the saliva that they had found on the victims to establish a DNA match.
Holy shit.
That's some movie shit right there. They had to do like a full undercover thing to get pizza crust. That's wild to me.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So, finally, on July 7th of 2010, Franklin was arrested. 2010.
OMG.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office charged him with 10 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and special circumstances allegation for multiple murders. Wow. Lots of jargon.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, exactly. On December 16th of 2010, the LAPD released 180 photos of women found in Franklin's home after unsuccessful attempts to identify the individuals who were possibly additional victims. So when they searched his house, they found 180 photos. And they released them to the public. So they released them, and they're like, if you guys know any of these people, let us know. Because they can't identify any of them.
Right.
Oh my God. Are they alive in the pictures?
Not all of them.
Oh my God.
Yeah. These people are not suspects. We don't even know if they're victims. We don't know any of this. Lonnie Franklin's reign of terror in the city of Los Angeles, which spanned over 2 decades, culminating with the amount of almost a dozen murder victims, certainly needs to be investigated further, which is what the chief police at the time said. So they're like, we're trying to do everything we can. Like, they've had enough backlash from everybody, and they're like, we're trying. We've got this. In all, investigators found 1,000 photos and several hundred hours of videos in his home. The images show mainly Black women of a wide range of ages, anywhere from teenagers to middle age. Most of them were often nude. The police believe that Franklin took many of the pictures to show that some of them were conscious and some of them were not. Yeah. And he said that he could have had some of them because 30 years in the past, like dating, people would like give each other photos of themselves kind of thing. So he doesn't know where they came from, and he can't make any conclusions about what those photos are yet. So they're released to the public to try and identify any of these women. And on November 3rd of 2011, the police chief reported that the police were considering Franklin as a suspect in 6 more killings. So they arrested him, and they're like, okay, we've got like 11 murders that we know that he did because we have DNA. There's 6 more.
Yeah.
That they're like, this is probably him. The police were investigating 2 of the 6 potential victims killed during the 14-year lapse between the initial spat of the Grim Sleeper murders that ended in 1988 and began again in 2002. So this is insane. It's a lot happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the end, Franklin was charged with 10 murders and 1 attempted murder and was held without bail. He was never charged with the death of the suspected 11th victim, a black man, a crime for which there was no DNA found. After a lengthy pre-trial discovery and several delays, the trial opened on February 16th of 2016. 15th. Oh my god.
16? He got
February
arrested
16th
in 10 and his trial
dragging
started
this
in
out
16.
forever, man.
So
Holy cow.
Like, I get it though, because there's possibly 17 murders, but they're going after like 10 of them in one case, which is wild. So
could you imagine being a juror on that?
No.
Mm-mm.
Not even close. Closing arguments began May 2nd of 2016, and the jury began deliberating on May 4th of 2016. So 2 days. On May 5th of 2016, after nearly 3 months of the trial, it was a day and a half of deliberation from the jury, and Franklin was convicted on all counts. He was guilty all across the board. So yeah, that's basically it. It was a lot of just like,
that's crazy.
We kind of have this guy, but we're not sure, but he's still fucking doing this. So they never went after him for those 6 other murders.
Yeah.
I had never heard of him or the Strawberry Murders. I've never heard of that.
I never heard of that.
So the Grim Sleeper is what he's most known as, because that was like the big name that they had given him. And a lot of what I was seeing was really going into like the victims and the victims' lives and stuff like that, which is another side of the story. I thought that this side of the story was a little wild, and it needs like somebody has to say this. It's crazy to me. But in the end, it's also really weird because he was in jail, and he was just found dead in his cell.
What?
There were no marks on him, anything. There was no signs of anything. So it was 2020, and he died in his cell, and he was just found dead.
Wow.
And they also, the cause of death and the results of the autopsy were not publicly released. So they're not telling anybody what actually happened to him.
COVID.
Probably.
Kidding.
Probably. I mean, it was March of 2020. So
yeah.
No, it could have been. And it wouldn't have been labeled as COVID by that point.
Right. It's also just weird to me that like deaths can happen in prison and they don't have to report to anybody of what happened.
No.
It's just,
No.
Scary.
yeah,
Really.
it's a little weird.
So scary.
But yeah,
that was an
Rainey,
insane story.
You can thank Rainey for that one because she walked into the shop one day.
Thanks.
She walked into the shop one day and she didn't even let me say hi. She goes, "Have you heard of the Grim Sleeper?" And I was like, "No, but I'm looking it up right now." Yeah, this was a really good one. I had a tough time telling it because there's a lot of information in here, but it was it's
good
wild.
job.
Thank you.
It's just I would never I mean, we hear these stories, we think, why didn't they do this or why didn't they do that? But we really don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just frustrating though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, because you see it from the outside. Yeah. And then
and it's like we're looking at the entire story.
Exactly.
They only have part
we
of
know
it
what happens.
certain times.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so wild to me.
Dang.
And the fact that they his son was the reason that they were able to
find That's crazy. Yeah.
They've solved so many murders. Yeah, since people have started doing the family tree stuff and everything, they've been able to solve so many murders because they're like, your cousin murdered somebody. Who's your cousin?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's like Final Destination. Like he should have been caught a long time ago, and it kept going, and like all these things, like he just made it not happen, and then finally it was like this random thing that happened. Final Destination.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
Crazy. Speaking of Final Destination, I saw a meme the other day, and it was like just 3 millennials being traumatized by Final Destination, and it was one of those trucks that have the wood, the big logs.
Oh my god! Yes.
And then there was 3 cars, it was like the truck, and then it was like just empty space. It probably could have fit like 4 cars, and then the other cars started.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is literally me. I get on the total opposite side of the hall.
You're not going to catch me behind that.
I wonder if like the younger generation. Oh my god, I'm so old. If the younger generation see us doing shit like that, and they're like, "What the fuck are they doing? Like, why is that happening?" You had to see it. You had to have seen it. Also, like
terrifying.
The glass
tanning
from
booths.
Final Destination, tanning booths. It's so wild. I'm good on all of that. Now I need to go back and watch.
I stopped watching after like the second one. Yeah. I'm like, I don't need any more like fears in my life. I need to stop watching the show.
I'm anxious already, so
let me not make it worse.
Exactly.
So wild.
Same with what are those movies? Saw.
Oh,
after like the third one, I was like, I cannot watch anymore.
Yeah. I would tell myself I'm watching it for the story, but I'm like, what? Really? Like, you're not. You're not watching it for the story.
No.
Saw. Aren't they like coming out with a new one?
I think.
Or did they just come?
Saw.
I think they just came out with a new one.
I do think they're coming out with another Saw.
Yeah.
So
they're coming out with a new.
They were in space,
lag
right?
that we have
it's
drives
bad.
me crazy.
Yeah. It is bad. Yeah.
So
they were in space.
I think they were in space, unless I'm thinking of something else. Maybe I'm thinking of like Fast and Furious. Because Fast and Furious was in space. Absolutely, they were. I think everyone's just like, well, we don't know what else to do, so we'll just put them in space. Like, it seems to work.
I mean,
space.
Yeah.
Did I totally miss that one?
I
feel super old.
Yeah.
I feel so old.
We're going to an event on Saturday at Texas Motor Speedway. And it's called Fuel Fest. It's like the cars are a bunch of drifting cars and car show and things like that. Anyways, and 2 of the guests are Tyrese and Cody Walker, which is Paul Walker's brother. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Damn.
Are they all going to cry? I would cry.
Yeah.
We're
You
gonna
just
be
like
there.
walk up to him and you just start crying.
I
That would
know.
be me.
He's like, can you not, please?
Yeah.
He's like, you know how long ago that was, and I finally healed from it, and here you are crying at me. You're like, I haven't healed yet.
I met somebody one time that was, they're not even famous. It's like a niche, like you have to know somebody to know somebody to know this person. And I met them, and I met them, and I was like, it is so nice to meet you. And they're like, please don't cry. And I was like, I'm not crying. Why would you say that? And I had to walk away because I totally was crying when I met them. But I got called out.
It's like I couldn't imagine being in that like predicament, but you know, like being the person that's like, oh my God, so nice to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also am like, I've never met anybody famous before, so I'm like, I have no idea.
Well, the other
You
time
didn't know
I
what
met
you would
someone,
do.
yeah,
Like,
the other time I met someone famous was when I was in Austin. I worked at the mall, and there's a drag queen, like a very famous drag queen that was in my store, and not as a drag queen. And I walked into the store, I was like, they are so gorgeous. And I like walked past them and I kind of like did a double take, and I turned around and I screamed in her face. And I was like, you're Louisiana Purchase. And she goes, yeah. And I was like, I am so sorry. She was like, it's okay. It's okay. And I tweeted her later. I was like, I just yelled in Louisiana Purchase's face. And she tweeted me back and she goes, it's all right. I'm like, are you sure?
I just Louisiana Purchase in your face.
And then I was performing that weekend, and I see the orange hair in the back of the show, and I'm like, please don't tell me she's here. She was there, and she remembered me because I screamed in her face. So
cool. It was like,
it could be either way. Like I always try and think of something to like leave them so that they do remember you, kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, and it's like, you know, that's a cool story. Like, you know how many people she's told. You're like, you're not gonna believe that I walked into this store and then the employee screamed in my face. Like it was, you know, it was something that she's always gonna remember.
Yeah.
For sure.
I met
that's why I
another
tell
drag.
people all the time because
Go ahead.
Because I'm like, my name is Storm.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So I'm always like, do you know how many times I've probably been brought up into somebody's house? It's like, well, I went to school with somebody whose name was Storm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a TikTok the other day, and this guy was like, just remember that you are a topic of a couple's fight tonight. And I was like, that's toxic as fuck, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're like, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's so crazy to me. The internet.
Oh, that's too funny.
I don't think I've ever been that. I'm trying to think.
Not that you know
you
of.
don't know.
Not that you know of.
No.
I can only imagine.
You know, I'm just so gorgeous. You know what I mean? Everyone's just fighting for me.
Well, I mean, we always say we're very pretty and we are hilarious. So, I mean, it makes sense.
We are.
That's right.
People should be jealous.
We attract people. Yeah.
That's very true. We really do. Can't stop it. Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. Jinx.
Okay. Enough of our ramblings. Story. If they want to hear more of this, where can they find us?
We are on Facebook, Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar. We are on Instagram at 3Swib Podcast. Go on there, like, comment, do all the things. Also, please rate and review. It is super, super helpful for us. And YouTube, go on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, comment, do all the things on there. I feel like I had another thing I was going to say. Story recommendations, if you have any that you want us to tell.
Yes.
Anything paranormal, alien, true crime. What was one I was thinking about earlier?
Like urban legends.
Conspiracy theories.
Ooh, conspiracy
Urban
theories.
legends.
Good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoot them our way. Let us know. And yeah.
All right. Well, that's what happens when 3 siblings walk into a bar.